Thank you. Good morning, and welcome to the 22-23 Back to School Media Briefing. I am Whitney Oakley, Acting Superintendent, and happy to have with us members of our senior leadership team and district leaders here with us this morning. I want to thank you, the media, for being here today and for your important role in sharing this vital information with our parents and our community. As an educator, a parent, and a longtime resident of Guilford County, it is truly an honor to serve our schools. GCS is a great place to learn, work, and grow. I'm excited to share the wonderful things happening in GCS this morning as we prepare to embark on a new school year. GCS has outstanding teachers and staff, and I want to remind you that Leah Carper is the 2022 Burroughs Welcome Fund North Carolina Teacher of the Year, and Katrinka Brown is the 2022 Piedmont Triad Region Principal of the Year. In this picture, she's standing next to Eric Nagley, who was also the 2021 Piedmont Triad Regional Principal of the Year. These are just three of the many remarkable educators that are part of our public schools. We have staff who are committed to the success of our students across the district. It goes without saying that it takes a community effort to meet the diverse needs of our students. I am proud of all of our employees who wake up every day ready to make a difference in the lives of our students. You may remember from last year Thomas Fawcett from Peck Elementary, who turned 100 years old. Also have some of the best high schools in the state of North Carolina, according to the U.S. News and World Report. We are proud of our three schools who have been recognized by the National PTA as schools of excellence. We want to especially thank voters for approving two bond referendums in the past 2 years, enabling us to invest $2 billion to build and renovate schools that prioritize learning, improve safety and security, support workforce development needs, and strengthen our community. But let's not forget, we have overcome a lot in the last 2.5 years. The past 2.5 years have been hard and have redefined the way every school and every department has functioned. However, we have learned a lot, and we have pivoted to ensure our students are successful despite all the challenges that we face. Here are a few noteworthy items I know will be familiar to you. Our country has experienced learning loss across student groups. Still struggles with mental health issues, including students of color who have been disproportionately affected because of long-standing inequities, caused higher death rates in their communities, and as a result, many of our students experience the loss of a loved one. COVID has been the story that has never ended. Just when we thought the Delta variant had gone, here came Omicron, and we began offering drive-through testing for students and employees this past winter break. And as if that was not enough, we had fewer people in our buildings to help deal with these complex issues. Nationally, teacher shortages have been prominent in the news, and Guilford County is not exempt. 44% of public schools reported having at least one teaching vacancy in January of 2022. 57% of public schools with one or more vacancies said that they increasingly needed to use teachers for work beyond their job descriptions. And the number of employed school bus drivers nationwide fell by nearly 15% from October 19th to October 2021. Of course, we have familiar challenges with HVAC issues and deteriorating facilities impacting our ability to teach students. We know that moving classes to gyms and media centers because of a broken pipe or a failing air conditioning is not helping us in the flow of the instructional day. During COVID, we struggled to bring schools back because of our aging facilities. An example, Swan Middle School is celebrating its centennial year. This school was built just 2 years after the last pandemic. GCS did not give up. Whenever and wherever they were most needed in these last few years, they kept showing up, demonstrating remarkable leadership amidst unthinkable hardship. When the pandemic first came knocking, they rolled up their sleeves and buckled down, helping students make the swiftest transition to remote learning as possible. During the spring of 2020, when pandemic-related job losses were at their peak, we served between 33,000 and 34,000 meals daily. To ensure technology and access was not a barrier to student learning, we deployed 124 smart buses to apartment complex, mobile home parks, and other areas of our community that lack broadband internet connectivity so that students could learn online. We distributed more than 79,000 devices to students and staff and provided more than 2,400 MiFi hotspots to our students. I am proud that GCS made national news for some of our efforts, especially a district of our size, to pivot and ensure students had what they needed to be successful. Then, realizing the long road ahead, staff worked to help students regain a sense of normalcy without sacrificing their own health and safety. They kicked it into high gear to help students return to school with numerous safeguards and precautions in place. We were one of the first large districts in North Carolina and one of the first urban districts nationally to reopen 5 days a week for in-person learning for grades pre-K through 2 and the first to open for grades 3 through 5. Where are we now? We're moving forward. To overcome pandemic-related learning loss, we launched and expanded our nationally acclaimed learning hubs. The more days that students attended learning hubs, the more their language, arts, and math scores increased on average. 5,901 students attended these learning hubs at each of our 15 comprehensive high schools last year. Additionally, 5,246 students were tutored by more than 400 tutors during the 21-22 school year for a total of 66,910 hours of tutoring. I'm also excited to share that we saw a 140% increase in CTE credential attainment over the prior year, equipping our students to be globally prepared and enter the workforce. We have established new partnerships with universities and local groups. We know how important it is to keep students in the classroom. That is why we are working on expanding telemedicine services to more schools in partnership with Cone Health. Cone Health has a pending American Rescue Plan grant with the county as part of the recovery funds our county received. Safety is a top priority for me, and I know it is for you. We are exploring proactive ways to keep our students safe, keeping in mind that building and nurturing relationships with students and making sure that they have a trusted adult in the building is some of the most important work we can do. After many delays, the 2022 school bond has been certified, and we are so grateful for the support of our voters, investing in the future of our students and our community. Here we are again, at the start of a new school year. Our efforts to recover from learning loss are paying off. Preliminary data shows students in schools saw learning gains compared to 2021. Some schools have preliminary 21-22 performance composites that are at or above pre-COVID levels. Stay tuned for an update when embargoed test data is released by the state on September 1st. We will continue doing what works to ensure our students are prepared to succeed in higher education or in the career of their choice, including extended learning time and high-intensity tutoring. Despite all of the teacher shortages and challenges experienced across the country, we are excited that nearly 200 teachers have joined GCS since June 28th of this summer. I have good news for teachers and staff. While we still have work to do, we have been advocating for competitive pay for many years. We have made some progress towards our goals. We are grateful to the General Assembly and to our Board of Guilford County Commissioners for their commitment to increase salaries for teachers and staff. I will now ask Ms. Henry to speak more about this.
Thank you, Dr. Oakley. Certainly, the 22-23 state budget does include salary increases for our teachers based on their years of experience. Those increases are going to range from 2.5% to 7.2%. Also, our classified staff, or our non-licensed staff, are going to receive a 4% increase or an increase to $15 an hour, whichever is greater. The Board of County Commissioners this year is continuing with their plan to try to get our teachers' salary supplement up to the highest in the state and budgeted an additional $10 million for that purpose. They also budgeted $2 million to increase our salaries for our principals and $1.2 million to impact the salaries for our assistant principals. And then we continue to provide the $10,000 signing bonus for new teachers at our priority schools, as well as those hard-to-fill positions, which include but are not limited to math, science, career, technical education, and exceptional children. And please be sure to visit our website if you know anybody who is interested in teaching for Guilford County Schools.
Thank you. To keep our students and staff safe begins with meaningful relationships. We have been busy over the summer training staff. Multiple staff members at all schools have been trained to address suicide prevention and intervention needs. We continue to provide additional trainings to address the social and emotional needs of our students. And a national 988 crisis hotline launched this summer, providing critical mental health services to those who need it. We have been focused on enhancing safety and security. I will now ask Ms. Reed to speak more about this.
Thank you, Dr. Oakley. As you mentioned earlier, safety and security is really important for all of our schools, and we have a few initiatives that we are introducing and or enhancing this year. Evolve is our touchless security screeners. They are going to be input into all of our high schools as of our open house, which will be on the 22nd. We're excited to partner with Evolve and really make sure that our screeners are in place by that time. We are enhancing our security cameras by updating by the fall our new video management system. This will allow for many of our cameras in our schools to be enhanced and are looking at replacements in schools across the district over the coming months. Following a competitive process, we are also introducing our Pearson Wireless and partnering with them to do our radio controls for emergency responders. This ensures that radio responders in our buildings, emergency management folks in our buildings are able to actually have our high frequency because of the buildings are actually built out of masonry and heavy duty materials. They can't fully hear or use the materials. They can't get their frequency out to other buildings, and so this is going to enhance their ability to actually have communications and coverage across all of our district buildings. We are also upgrading our Crisis Go app. This allows for, in the fall, students to anonymously report incidences directly with school leadership, which is really great for our student population to be able to do. And then finally, our One Card program is enhancing this year. We're expanding it to include RFID cards, which will allow for us to know student populations in all of our buildings and make sure that we know who are on our campuses. And we have partnered with Greensboro Police Department as well as High Point Police Department and Guilford County Sheriffs to complete and or plan various active shooter trainings. One was actually completed on August 4th, and we actually have another one tonight with the High Point Police Department, which is going to be at the Green Street Baptist Church. So we look forward to continuing to enhance our partnerships with those entities.
Thank you. Strongly encourage families to apply for free and reduced lunch. Even if families do not qualify for free lunch, we would like to thank the General Assembly for supporting students who qualify for reduced lunch to eat for free. We also think it's important to note that this year we have a new food supplier and have worked to improve our menus and our food options for school meals. I'll ask Ms. Henry to speak a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Dr. Oakley. So the federal waivers that were in place that allowed us to feed all students free breakfast and lunches for the last 2 years were expired on June 30th. So now families are going to be are being asked to complete applications so that they can qualify for free or reduced price meals. As Dr. Oakley mentioned, if you do qualify for reduced price meals, the General Assembly is funding the cost of that reduced price, and so families will not be charged for the 22-23 budget.
I am proud of the improvements we have made with bus routes to ensure our students have safe transportation to and from schools. I'll ask Ms. Reed to speak about the current transportation enhancements.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Oakley. So we have implemented a new bus routing system. Previously, we used Edgelog. We are now implementing Bus Planner. The goals of the routing system implementation is to ensure that we are able to relook at all of our routes around the district to identify efficiencies, to increase the number of community stops, as well as addressing ongoing bus driver shortages through optimizing routes and maximizing ridership, quite frankly. Ultimately supporting student outcomes by allowing students to get to school on time and reduce our issues around double routes. We are also happy to report that we are upgrading all of our buses with our security cameras, which will be Wi-Fi enabled. This will allow us to have video feed into our buses and also potentially tap in a live feed. Additionally, GCS will continue our efforts with our partners in Greensboro Transit Agency, as well as High Point Transit, to offer students the option of riding public transportation for free. Students will need to have a valid 2022-23 one card issued. Those cards will have the RFID, which will allow them to scan on the buses. This is really a great partnership that we're looking to continue for years to come.
Thank you. We are also grateful for our building services team and all the hard work that they have put in over the summer. Ms. Reed will provide a few more details about this.
Absolutely. I am very pleased to announce that we have completed over 13 of our ESSER-funded HVAC projects. We have some still underway, but I'm very excited that we have made that push with the 25 that we had planned. Nearly 5,000 work orders have been completed over the summer. We are really maximizing all of our resources, including contracted services, to get things situated for the start of the school year. We have 3 roof replacement projects that were completed over the summer, and we have additional underway.
We do have some new schools to actually build. We have groundbreakings coming up soon, and I hope you will join us for these huge milestones next week on August 22nd and August 23rd. Do appreciate the voters for supporting the $1.7 billion school bond program, and we begin with the schematic design for the 2022 bond projects after the Local Government Commission authorized Guilford County to move forward with the $1.7 billion school bond program. We will also be hosting various listening sessions with teachers, families, students, and community members to hear ideas on what the community would like to see in these new schools. I want to end the same way I started. GCS is a great place to learn, work, and grow. I had the opportunity to welcome back many of our students this week, and I cannot wait for all of them to come back on August 29th. It is truly an honor to serve our community, and I believe our best days are ahead. And after the last few years, I'm convinced that we can overcome anything that comes our way. So let's get to work. Before we take questions, I just want to thank and acknowledge our board members, Ms. Betty Jenkins and Ms. Kim Irby, who are here with us, and we are grateful for their leadership.
Okay, thank you, Dr. and Michelle and Andrew. We appreciate that information. So we'll now open the floor for any questions that the media may have. And again, if you would go to the mic that's in the middle of the floor. And please let us know who you are addressing your question to.
Question for Dr. Oakley. I wonder if you could tell us, heading into another school year and this time at the helm in an interim role, one thing you're looking forward to, and maybe one thing that worries you about the school year, maybe keeps you up at night, that you're hoping to solve that problem this year.
Great one. I do know that we're ready to welcome schools back. We've learned so much over the past 2 years about how to operate schools under difficult conditions. what keeps me up at night, I think probably resounds for all of us, is that we're continuing to watch. COVID isn't over. We know that we have to be ready, but we also know that we need our kids in school, and we're ready and prepared to welcome them back.
For Michelle Reed. So we talked, I think, last year about the HVAC issues. It's still pretty hot. Kind of give us an update about what's going on with that right now. I saw 13 projects completed, but I know there's many, many more.
Sure. So we have 13 projects completed, as I alluded, and those are major renovations, major projects of equipment that needed to be replaced. There are ancillary, about 40 projects that we have currently, work orders that we're working on. Those are spot issues within a building. But again, as I alluded last year, we need funding in order to do a large system replacement that includes all of the piping and various other systems that feed the large units. So that is a $7 to $10 million effort. So we continue to identify and triage all of the onesie twosies that we get in each building. But again, we really want to focus on our larger efforts.
Question is for Dr. I saw that you mentioned that you brought on over 200 teachers to start the new school year. I wanted to ask how many teacher vacancies are still open at this point?
Yes, we have hired nearly 200 teachers since June 28th, and vacancies are a moving target. Since we've been here, we're hiring teachers. We do have 37 teacher vacancies as of this week. But it's important to remember that we've been through this, right? I think during the Omicron period, we had to do coverage. We had to leverage our licensed staff. We have substitutes, retirees, and other licensed central office staff who are ready to stand in if needed as we start the school year.
Follow up on that question for you, Dr. Oakley. There was a study published this morning taking a look at teachers in schools across the nation, and also looking at the types of people that were being hired to fill those roles. In this study, it says that North Carolina has more than 14,000 underqualified people in classrooms, which is the third highest in the nation. Obviously, we're just focused on Guilford County here, but I wonder if you could speak to the parents about maybe the quality and the people that are being hired in these positions, and speak to that notion that there is the potential that some people in these classrooms could be underqualified.
So, I mean, I think remembering that we only have 37 teacher vacancies, and compared nationally, we're proud of that number for sure. Also, North Carolina has state requirements on licensure that we have to follow in order to employ teachers. So we have qualified teachers who are filling those vacancies. I'm also proud of that our Board of Education has continued to deeply invest in professional learning for our teachers. So even as we hire new teachers or teachers who may come in with an alternate license, we're able to give them the support they need to be successful.
About teacher vacancies, with bus driver vacancies, where are we on that? And I know you all are continuing the partnership with Greensboro Transportation, High Point. Do we foresee that students are going to need to use that, or is it just kind of be given an option?
I'll start and you can fill in if that's okay. During the summer, you just heard that our transportation office was able to do some optimizing of bus routes, which will certainly help address the ridership and address bus driver shortages. We currently have enough drivers to provide transportation to all students who have requested it. It's important to keep in mind that some of our bus drivers will still be running double routes. The partnership with the Greensboro and High Point Transit Authorities is an option. It's an option for our students if they want to use that. Many students found that to be an efficient way to get to school, but it is just that, an option. Currently, there's 53 driver vacancies, but that's out of 405 positions. It's also important to put this up against what we experienced last year. So you'll remember, I think, in December and January, at the peak of Omicron, we had to suspend the transportation for some of our high schools. That was because we had nearly 1/3 of our drivers who were out due to COVID or other illnesses and vacancies. We're in a much better place now.
you had given a long, well, I'm Sarah Mastori with ABC 45 News first, but I know I saw a long list of like the different safety mechanisms that'll be put in the various school systems, but I wanted to know, I think, after we've seen so many different mass shootings and students bringing guns to campus, I mean, how can you ensure that we'll keep our students safe? Like, what's a message you can tell parents? I mean, will all of these different tactics work and cut down on guns being brought to school?
So, I mean, I can tell you that safety is our top priority, and that we are on schedule with the safety measures we've put in place. Mr. Ritchie will remind us, and I'll ask him to come fill in if you don't mind, but the relationships that we build with students is the number one thing that we can continue to focus on. All students need to have a trusted adult in the building. Will these tactics work? We will do our best to make sure that they're in place. We can't control for every incident. What we can do is make sure that we are forming relationships with our students and training on safety protocols. Mr. Ritchie?
Certainly. So that is the most important piece, is the relationships in. But you're asking if all of this will lead to, and the question, the piece I'd like you to look at is think of each one of those dots that were on the list, right? Every little piece. That's one more layer on security. So that's one more focus on it, one more person that's paying attention, one more step to keeping it safe. So all of this works to that combined plan along with the relationships to really move that on. I also like to point out that, thank goodness, knock on wood, however you want to put that, our district really did not have a huge proliferation of guns. We're doing this proactively. So the message that there were a lot of guns in the schools, there weren't. But we're doing this proactively to make sure they're not, because, as you said, on the national level, we're seeing that. And so what we really want to do is get ahead of that and make sure that it doesn't come to Guilford County.
Real quickly, how much in total? I know it's probably a lot for all the different safety techniques, the different equipment. How much would you say was spent on school safety for this upcoming school year?
I think that's something we'd have to get the detail back because it's moving. Like, we just did this radio scanner, so we'll need to add that in and get that number back to you. I do want to remind everyone that the $1.7 billion bond includes safety and security upgrades for all of our schools.
Thank you so much.
Continuing on with just the school safety conversation, there are other districts and counties in our area that have pushed really hard to get a school resource officer in every single school as one of those pieces of added extra layer of security. I haven't heard about any of those conversations yet in Guilford County, but I wanted to ask your thoughts on that, Dr. Oakley, or is that something that is happening in conversations behind the scenes here?
We followed the data around that. We presented on it at the last board meeting. I think we looked at the percentage of incidents that happen in our middle and high schools get us into the 99% range. We know that the training at our elementary school level and the new buildings that will have vestibules and things of that nature is the best route we can go with elementary schools. Having a police presence in elementary schools, there's just not data to support that that's effective.
That Northwest Guilford High School had raised, I think, $500,000 to renovate, I think, 23 mobile classrooms. I wanted to just kind of get your reaction on that and see kind of how would that have any impact on bond spending or general spending.
Community gets behind individual schools all the time. And we know that Northwest has had mobile units for some time because they've had overcrowding for some time. At the district level, our facilities master plan addresses schools in order of need, and we're committed to stick to that. We also know that it includes more than $360 million for deferred maintenance and plan to use that in order of our facilities master plan. We're always grateful when the communities rally behind schools and appreciate that effort.
Questions going on in the new school year. You talked a little bit about learning loss, and I know one of the big things that we've talked about all year and throughout the pandemic over the past couple of years is those missing students. The students that have been hard to track down on virtual learning, and even continuing into this year that have just seemed to disappear. I wonder, how have you been able to track down those missing students, and is there anything new that we're prioritizing or doing to make sure that we get those kids back and connected in the classroom?
Sure. So again, across the nation, public education saw declines in enrollment, and we have done targeted efforts using social media and mailings and school counselors, boots on the ground to try to recover. We'll know more when we get to the 10th and 20th day of school, where we have a point of comparison. All I can tell you right now is our attendance and enrollment at our schools who have already begun is at par with what we expected. So we're pleased with the numbers that we're seeing of students coming to school, like here at Blueford and at our other restart and our extended year schools.
I'm a curious person. You spoke about the mental health aspect and how there were a few more people within each school that were trained in specifics of suicide prevention and that kind of thing. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about maybe the resources available and that emphasis on mental health. We're seeing it become more of a problem in kids younger and younger. Maybe just easing parents' minds that there is someone inside of every school that's on their kids' side. If you could speak to that.
Absolutely. It's not unlike school safety that the relationships with the adults is critically important in addressing mental health needs. We do have more staff that have had more training around how to recognize and identify a potential mental health issue. We're also making sure that we inform parents. Our school counselors are there and trained. Our school psychologists are mental health professionals and that are there and trained. And it's going to take all of us, right? We have to make sure that we have those relationships and that students feel comfortable sharing when they have a concern.
Talk about a little bit about the new partnership with internet service for Guilford County families that you all, the pilot program that you all are starting.
TDIPs.
Yeah. Yes.
So we have been working for about a year with TDI. It's a broad partnership that they have formed as a coalition. We are excited to introduce the pilot. We're at the infancy stages of the pilot, so I think more to come in the next few months.
Talk about why this is necessary and kind of what led to the pilot program. Like, what made you say, "Oh, we need to do this"?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we first started, the first thing we did when schools closed in March was think about getting food. And quickly thereafter, we were thinking about how to do school from home. We didn't know how long it was going to last. And we learned very quickly that in our own county that there were pockets, particularly those in hyper-segregated areas of poverty, that did not have access to broadband internet. We used the data from the census maps to show us who did not have access. And we targeted high density areas, apartment complexes, and it still doesn't exist. And in many cases, families are being asked to pay exorbitant amounts of money to get access to broadband connectivity. And that's when we realized it was an issue. And we're hoping that this pilot will help us begin to address it. But it's widespread. It's not just in the city. If you think about areas in the eastern part or the rural parts of the county, we spoke to one mother early in the pandemic who had 5 children and got a quote to have the internet run to her house, and it was more than $22,000. And so it's not just here, but because we're so big, we're more than 640 square miles across the county, it's pervasive and something we're going to have to continue to pay attention to.
I think we have 2 more questions. Jesse, are you good? Please, can you step to the mic?
I am wanting to understand and know a little bit more about on the academic side, specifically sort of the specific, like what's new for this school year. If you can talk about what are any programs or initiatives or just changes that students might see, will see, whether that's everybody or if it's some that like impact specific schools or students.
Yes, I think probably the biggest one is expansion of access to tutoring. So we saw that it worked last year. Schools wanted more access to more tutors. Families wanted a little bit more flexibility with when they could access tutoring. And so we're continuing to expand our tutoring partnerships in a few different ways. One will be that students can make appointments for virtual tutoring across subject areas, which is exciting. Another one would be that we've increased the number of graduate assistants that we're partnering with. So both UNCG and North Carolina A&T State University have been great partners in providing graduate assistants as tutors. It's paying off as we look at our math performance, and we plan to continue access to that during this coming year. Our Board of Education has continued to invest in instructional materials. We have access to high quality instructional materials for students across grade spans and subject areas, so we can expect that to continue, as well as professional learning for teachers.
I know there was some talk last year that the middle schools, I think, I'm not sure if it was the learning hubs or tutoring, but I want to say somebody said something about, one of these initiatives expanding to middle school students. Is that starting yet, or is that yet to come?
So tutoring is K-12, elementary, middle, and high schools. Learning hubs currently are in our high schools. We are looking at piloting some middle schools. We've applied for some grants. So when we know those grants, we'll be able to consider whether we're able to extend learning hubs into our middle schools.
Anything else specific about, like, just something that's, that's new? Parents, students will see it. They'll say, I haven't seen this before. This is new to me on the academic.
Our state standards have stayed the same from last year to this year, and so we just continue to plan on those additional supports, those learning supports for students that I previously mentioned.
Probably a good wrap-up question. Yeah, right. I just want to know, are there any significant changes that right now we need to remind parents, do this, look at this before the first bell? Is there anything parents can do to make this school year the most successful that it can be?
So I think the biggest one is making sure that parents fill out the free and reduced lunch application. For the past 2 years, we haven't had to do that. We've had a waiver. And so it's not required, but it's strongly encouraged that prior to the start of the school year, that families fill out that free and reduced lunch application so that we don't have any breaks, or we don't have to think about that later down the road. We, of course, will provide access to meals for all students, but that's new and different and critically important for this start of this school year. Yeah, and the vaccinations, of course. So there's 3 grade levels that have required vaccinations, and we want to make sure that students get those within the first few days of school, so there's no disruption in school for them as well. And you can find those on our website at gcsnc.com.
Okay. We are currently issuing all of our bus routes. Parents may see a change in their bus route or their stop. We are trying to enhance our optimization by creating community stops. So there may be a little bit longer walk, a couple doors down, to create that community stop to allow for our efficiency rate to increase.
Any routes that could affect at this moment, or we're still finalizing those plans?
Correct. We are still finalizing those plans.
Any number off the top of your head of bus driver vacancies who we still need? How many people we still need?
53.
53
bus driver
bus
Okay,
drivers.
thank you. There was a lot of numbers up there, so I
Yes.
appreciate that. 53.
And,
Oh, sorry. We encourage everyone to continue to apply because this is a fluid number. And we have call outs. So we really want to make sure that people know that we will bring you in if you don't have a CDL. And we have a program that we implemented in February where we will bring you in and train you and help you through the process of garnering your CDL.
And I'll just add that next week are open houses, and that's the best way to, if you haven't already or you're not sure about your bus stop or your bus route, you check that information at school during the open house period. We want to make sure people have that information. We always ask come out about 10 minutes earlier until they, stabilize through the first part of school, and we'll continue to add students to routes as it's requested.
Thank you to our media partners for joining us this morning. if, as you get back to your particular stations, if you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Gabrielle Brown, who will work to get you the responses that you need. And so thanks again. Have a good day.